The Mystery of Jewish Intelligence. Welcome to the Book Summary channel with the Slow English Podcast. Dear friend, there is a nation that makes up less than 0.2% of the world's population, yet contributes more than 20% of Nobel Prize winners. Who are they? They are the Jewish people. Is it because they were born with superior intelligence genes, or because they possess a secret system that has been cultivated for thousands of years? The answer lies entirely within the book Jewish Wisdom, written by a real Jewish author, a very famous man who once set a Guinness World Record by memorizing a sequence of 500 digits after hearing it only once. The central character of the book is a man named Jerome, a slightly goofy-looking guy with flashy clothes and an eccentric style. Almost all the time, he wears faded jeans combined with various graphic t-shirts printed with bizarre images and strange, noisy slogans produced by his own small garment workshop. Jerome's strengths are his humor, cheerful personality, and optimism. His weakness is his tendency toward racial prejudice. Although he is a Jewish immigrant, Jerome is afraid of and avoids Jewish rituals and traditions. It seems he wants to deny and escape his own roots. After a minor traffic accident caused by reversing too far, Jerome unexpectedly gains two new friends, the author and Professor Itama. Jerome calls them his rare intellectual friends. The three of them meet once a week, every Friday at 10 a.m. at a small cafe called Ladino. From that moment, his life begins to turn a new page. One Friday, during their usual coffee meeting, the conversation suddenly turns to the topic of Jewish intelligence. Jerome tries awkwardly to change the subject, while Professor Itama and the author become excited. Professor Itama pulls out a stack of documents and begins pointing out astonishing facts. In the 19th century, most international bankers were Jewish. Between 1819 and 1835, Jewish people controlled up to 20% of Germany's economy, despite making up less than 1% of the population. Today, statistics show that 1/3 of American millionaires are Jewish. Suddenly, a voice comes from the cashier's desk. Jewish people have a very special imagination. All three turn to look. It is Fabio, the cafe owner, who is also Jewish. The name Ladino itself is a Jewish word. Fabio walks over and joins the discussion. He continues, "Imagination is a skill most people neglect because it requires real effort. Most people prefer watching movies to reading books, because movies show everything directly, without forcing the brain to imagine images on its own. Jewish people are different. They were forced to develop extremely creative imagination because they had no other choice." He explains further. Take the concept of God. In many cultures, God has a physical form represented by statues, but Jewish people were nomadic, without land or possessions. How could they carry statues everywhere? So God became invisible, something you cannot see or touch, only imagine. Instead of kneeling before a statue, a Jewish person can kneel anywhere, close their eyes, and imagine God in their own unique way. Because of constant displacement and injustice, imagination became their only way to escape suffering and enter a beautiful spiritual kingdom. Fabio concludes, "The Jewish idea is simple. imagine the most ridiculous thing possible. Set goals that seem completely unrealistic. Then think realistically about how to achieve them, because nothing is truly impossible. Jerome bursts out laughing. Sarcastically, he says, "So if I imagine myself rich and successful like Donald Trump, I'll become Donald Trump? That's ridiculous." Professor Itama replies calmly, "Donald Trump? No, but you can become rich and successful as Jerome." Jerome sighs. "Fine, change the subject. I'm tired of this. Do you really think you can turn Jewish people into geniuses and apply that method to someone as dense as me?" Professor Itama looks at him seriously. Yes. Part 2. The first rule. Imagining an impossible future. Professor Itama tears a piece of paper and hands it to Jerome. He says, "Now, write down 2 things you want to achieve within the next 3 years. While you are doing that, the author and I will continue to collect the techniques and methods that Jewish people have practiced for centuries. You must apply everything we discover to reach your goals. If after 3 years you fail to achieve those 2 things, the money written on this paper will belong to you." Jerome opens his eyes wide in surprise. Suddenly, he becomes serious. This bet is interesting. If after 3 years he achieves what he wants, that would be incredible. But if he fails, it does not matter. He will still get the money. Either way, he loses nothing. So Jerome takes the pen and writes down his 2 deepest desires. The first desire: I want to have $50 million in the bank. The second desire: he hesitates for a moment. "You're not allowed to laugh," he says. Then he writes, "I want to earn a master's degree in business administration." It turns out Jerome never truly wanted to live a mediocre life, running a tiny garment workshop just to get by. Deep inside, he wanted to enter the intellectual world. He wanted to do business properly and become a successful entrepreneur. Fabio, who witnessed the bet, shakes Jerome's hand and congratulates him. "You have just taken the very first step of the Jewish secret method," he says. "That step is imagining an alternative reality, letting go of all notions of logic and feasibility. Indeed, if we look back at major inventions in history, they all began as ideas considered absurd. In the Middle Ages, anyone who imagined humans flying like birds would have been called insane. Yet one day, the airplane was born. Imagination became reality. We will continue to follow Jerome's journey to see what the second step is that he must take. That step is sharp observation as a survival skill. Part 3. The second rule. Sharp observation as a survival skill. Not long after the coffee shop bet, Item has a chance to travel to Paris. There he happens to meet a Jewish merchant in his 50s named Samuel, who specializes in the diamond trade. After a few greetings and learning that Item lives in Israel, Samuel recalls that he once visited that area 8 years earlier. He says he remembers a fountain near a playground close to the Monastery of the Cross. Itam laughs. He walks past that place every day, and there is no fountain there at all. Samuel insists that he remembers correctly. To prove it, Itam calls his wife. After a few seconds of hesitation, she answers, "Yes, there is a circular stone structure left from the British colonial period. It looks like a fountain." Etam looks at Samuel like a defeated man and admires his sharp observation and memory. Samuel smiles and says, "Jewish people teach their children to observe carefully every place they pass through. This is a survival instinct forged through centuries of wandering, homelessness, and constant vigilance. When people live too comfortably, their senses become dull. But for Jewish people, an unstable life and ever-present danger forced them to become alert and sharp. Because they were not allowed to own land, most Jewish people had to leave rural areas and wander through cities looking for work. Urban competition became an ideal environment for developing intelligence and sharp instincts, especially in commerce." Hearing this, Itam suddenly thinks of his friend Jerome. Jerome lives without pressure. He wanders aimlessly, kills time at cafes and parties, and constantly looks down on himself, calling himself stupid. In truth, almost everyone goes through a period of feeling stuck, useless, and bored. But Jerome has stayed in that state for far too long. Samuel seems to sense Itam's thoughts. He says, "A person often finds it hard to succeed in the city they live in because everyone there knows their past mistakes. Only when someone goes elsewhere, free from social labels and old expectations, can they truly unleash their abilities with excitement and confidence. That's why many people fail in one place but succeed in another. When people travel and experience new lands, their perspective expands, and creativity grows through fresh viewpoints. Today, even though Jewish people no longer need to wander to survive, they still preserve the tradition of movement. They see traveling, exploring, and experiencing new places as part of personal growth." Immediately, Itam calls Jerome, books a ticket, and asks him to come to Paris at once to meet this 50-year-old Jewish man. Part 4. The third rule. Reverse thinking. Answering a question with another question. At exactly 2 p.m. the next day, Jerome appears at the hotel in Paris. After a few greetings, Samuel quickly notices Jerome's sharp humor and slightly mischievous personality. Samuel has a very special habit. Whenever he is asked a question, he always responds with another question. This is also a principle that Jewish families traditionally teach their children. Because when we answer a question with another question, the brain is forced to work harder. Jewish people believe that if someone spends their life doing mechanical work that requires little thinking or creativity, their brain will gradually shrink. This becomes the third rule that Jerome must learn on his journey to Jewish wisdom. Train reverse thinking by always answering a question with another question. This skill is extremely useful in life, especially when attending events or negotiating in business. By doing this, we can gain a stronger position and better control in conversations. Interestingly, the greatest inventions in human history are often just improvements of things that already existed. A mattress is simply an improved mat. A car is a refined version of a horse carriage. Most people are not open to new ideas. When something new appears, it is often rejected, not because it is wrong, but because it is unfamiliar. Jewish people, however, are different. Through centuries of wandering and survival, they learn to absorb the strengths of surrounding cultures and improve them to suit their own needs. In a way, they are creative imitators. In reality, human life is a sequence of unconscious imitation. As children, we imitate our parents. At school, we follow role models. During adolescence, we often idolize a celebrity or a public figure. Admiration and inspiration awaken inner belief and hidden strength that we never knew we had. From that inspiration, we begin to perform at our best. For example, if you admire a singer, you may wish to stand confidently on stage just like them. Even if you never become a singer, that confidence will remain a burning flame inside you, allowing you to shine on another stage in your life. And this leads to the fourth principle that Jerome must learn: creative copying based on what already exists. Samuel turns to Jerome and says, "An open mind saves time, money, and effort. Ask yourself, which company do you want to imitate? Which company's marketing strategy do you believe is the most successful?" Before parting ways, Samuel gives Etam and Jerome a business card. He asks them, when they return to Israel, to deliver this card to his beloved niece, Lisa, who is currently a student at the university where Jerome will soon study for his MBA. Part 5. The fourth and fifth rules. Debate to learn, and the Jewish memory method. When Etam and Jerome return to Israel, they do exactly as Samuel requested and visit the university where Jerome is studying for his master's degree in business administration. They meet Lisa. Lisa is not at all like the typical image people often imagine about Jewish immigrants. She appears confident, energetic, and quite beautiful. Jerome is immediately impressed. Lisa is famous for her extraordinary memory. She explains that ancient Jewish people did not record their history in books the way other civilizations did. Instead, they preserved history through oral tradition, embedding important events into prayers, rituals, and annual ceremonies. For example, during the Passover feast, which commemorates the Jewish exodus from Egypt, certain foods are mandatory: unleavened bread, bitter herbs, roasted lamb bone, and boiled eggs. Each food represents a historical meaning. Unleavened bread symbolizes poverty and the urgency of fleeing Egypt. Bitter herbs represent the suffering of slavery. The roasted bone symbolizes the powerful arm of God that saved them. The boiled egg represents rebirth and a new beginning. The Jews knew that books could be burned by enemies, so the only way to preserve history was to store it inside the minds of each individual, and memory, when shared by a group, becomes far stronger. Thus, generation after generation, children grow up participating in these rituals every year. History slowly embeds itself deeply into their memory. The next day, Jerome is taken to meet Rabbi Dahari, a respected scholar at the religious school. He has kind, bright eyes and a long white beard. Jerome tells the rabbi that he feels overwhelmed by the amount of knowledge and struggles to remember abstract academic concepts. Rabbi Dahari reviews Jerome's notes and immediately says, "You should not use yellow paper and blue ink. The Torah is always written with black ink on white paper. This rule exists because black on white is clearer, easier to read, and helps the mind focus." He also explains that Jewish texts are written in columns, similar to newspapers. This reduces eye movement, prevents fatigue, and improves concentration. Then the rabbi leads them to the study hall. Jerome is shocked. The place is extremely noisy. Pairs of students stand or sit facing each other, arguing passionately. They shout, gesture wildly, and appear almost ready to fight. But they are not fighting. They are studying. Rabbi Dahari smiles and explains, Jewish students never study alone. They study in pairs and constantly debate. Through debate, each person exposes what the other does not understand. Strong emotions anchor knowledge deeply in memory. This is the fifth principle of Jewish wisdom. Debate to clarify understanding. Rabbi Dahari adds, I cannot study in silence. Silence makes me nervous. Many people learn better in cafes or noisy environments. Movement helps thinking. Einstein conceived relativity while walking. Victor Hugo wrote Les Miserables while standing. Mozart composed music while walking. When Jews pray, they do not sit still. They sway, clap, and move rhythmically. The human brain, like any engine, needs gradual activation. Movement during learning helps the brain reach deep focus. He also warns, studying alone creates temptation and laziness. Yes, this part feels very accurate. But the most surprising insight comes next. In Judaism, the highest value is not work nor study. The highest value is rest. The sixth principle, rest to cleanse the mind. No matter how busy or poor, Jews strictly observe the Sabbath. One day, each week, they completely stop working. They dress beautifully, forget daily worries, and spend time with family and faith. The Sabbath is a day to recharge and reset the mind. Like cleaning a house once a week, the mind also needs regular cleansing. After visiting the school, Jerome decides to find a study partner to practice debate learning. The following Friday, the group meets again at Cafe Ladino. Jerome notices someone wearing a t-shirt designed by his company. He is thrilled. That person turns out to be his classmate in the MBA program. Jerome had followed a fashion brand's marketing strategy and gifted his t-shirts to classmates as friendly promotion. They reconnect, and Jerome chooses him as his debate partner. Learning becomes easier. Still, remembering technical concepts remains challenging. But today, two new people join the group, Lisa and a top student from the religious school. Both are known for exceptional memory. They reveal the traditional Jewish memory technique. Part 6. Memory Systems, Love, and Final Transformation. The seventh rule of Jewish wisdom. The Jewish memory technique used by Lisa and the religious student is actually very similar. It is based on keywords and visual imagination. This part is extremely important and very practical. You may want to pause and write it down. The religious student explains his method. He divides the mind into 10 compartments, numbered from 1 to 10. Each number is linked to an image. Number 1 is a spear. Number 2 looks like a sailboat on the ocean. Number 3 resembles a flat plate. Number 4 looks like a handsaw. Number 5 is a hand with 5 fingers. Number 6 is a fishing hook. Number 7 represents the 7 days of the week, symbolized by a calendar. Number 8 is a pair of glasses. Number 9 is a pregnant woman. Number 10 represents the 10 Commandments, symbolized by God. To make it easier to understand, Tanya demonstrates this method. For example, to remember a formula for writing advertising content, the first part of the ad goes into compartment 1, symbolized by the spear. She imagines a spear striking the ground, causing a shock. This represents a powerful headline or image that grabs attention immediately. The second part goes into compartment 2, the sailboat. She imagines a ship carrying treasure from the sea to land. This represents the core benefits the customer will gain. For example, these are the 3 things you will gain after completing this course. The third part goes into compartment 3, the plate. She imagines celebrating a customer's success at a party. This represents real-life stories and deep lessons. The fourth part goes into compartment 4, the handsaw. She imagines a tree being cut down. This represents a strong call to action. Act now before the opportunity disappears. At first, this method feels complicated, but with daily practice, it becomes instinctive. Once images are vivid, knowledge stays deeply rooted. Lisa explains that she uses these 10 compartments in everyday life, even for grocery shopping. She does not number them, but assigns Hebrew letters and images instead. For example, if she needs to buy a yellow highlighter and an eraser, she imagines coloring a boat yellow with the highlighter. Then she imagines erasing a house drawing with the eraser. Jerome immediately applies these techniques to his studies. He completes his first year of the MBA program successfully. That summer, Jerome takes his first world tour. He travels to Santo Domingo, Havana, England, Spain, Germany, Italy, and Paris. He meets manufacturers, distributors, and fashion companies. At a Paris fashion exhibition, he hands out all 200 business cards. He returns to Israel filled with excitement. But one problem remains. He struggles to remember names and faces. At the next Friday cafe meeting, the group agrees. A person's name is their most valuable asset. Calling someone by the wrong name is deeply disrespectful. The Jewish method to remember names is simple. Assign meaning to the name. Link it to facial features, profession, or emotion. For example, a woman named Hien, who is always angry. Hien, but not gentle. A man named Bin, who is a grumpy teacher. Bin teaches children and is never calm. A woman named Tui with long, smooth hair. Tui has hair flowing like water. You can also use nicknames as long as the person likes them. Jerome organizes all his business cards using this method. Soon after, he announces his wedding. His fiancée is Lisa. Everyone is shocked. Only Samuel smiles. The wedding is held at Cafe Ladino, now transformed into a luxury restaurant. At the end of the ceremony, Lisa reads aloud the message from Samuel's card. It was not a greeting. It was a matchmaking introduction. Jerome breaks down in tears. For the first time in his life, someone truly believed in him. 2 years after the bet, Jerome completes his MBA degree. His second goal is achieved. His first goal was $50 million. He already has $20 million, and 1 year remains. Finally, the 7 principles of Jewish wisdom are summarized. Develop rich imagination. Observe sharply. Think in reverse. Copy creatively. Debate to clarify. Cleanse the mind through rest. Master memory techniques. But these principles need 2 foundations: pressure to stay sharp and love as emotional support. Jerome's story proves one thing: the greatest asset is not money, it is the mind. Thank you for listening. See you in the next episode.